Quorum Radio on now with Vicente Velasco, direct from the Philippines. Vicente has been studying the JFK assassination. He's a researcher that has concentrated on the Carcano rifle as well as the windshield, but we won't talk about the windshield today as much as we will the alleged rifle that Lee Harvey Oswald purchased and used on November 22nd, 1963. And Vicente wanted to discuss this, and we're looking forward to having him basically go into detail on this weapon that has a very controversial, let's say, reputation. Vicente, welcome to Quorum Radio. How are you today? How's the weather?
Oh yeah, it's very warm here. I think it's about the lower to mid 90s. It may reach 100 later on, and I'm actually sweating right now. Even though I have a fan blowing full blast on me. So
wow. All right. Well, great. All right. Well, I'm you know, I mean, we're in Peru. We're like kind of like approaching winter.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, listen. Let me ask you a question. So the Carcano. Tell us a little bit about the history of this rifle.
Yeah.
And what happened in the 1930s regarding there was two variants, basic variants. There's a 6.5
oh yeah,
millimeter.
That's a very good question, because the
7.35.
yeah, the Carcano, as it's pronounced, correctly pronounced,
Carcano.
because it is an Italian rifle. It's actually very old. It's the first models were developed around 1891. And it's chambered for the original model, actually chambered for the 6.5 by 52 millimeter Carcano round. And the reason it's called a Carcano is because developed by Salvatore Carcano at the Turin Army Arsenal, 1890.
Right.
So that's why it's called 1891, was introduced at that time. Well, it's a bolt action rifle. Obviously, it's we don't have semi-automatic rifles until the M1 came along. Now, the thing about the they often call them Mannlicher Carcano, but it's not really that accurate. Although some people call it the Mauser Paravicino. It's but its visual designation is just simply the M91. The reason they usually call the Mannlicher Carcano because it uses on-block charger clips. You put the rounds into the clip and just ram it in. It was actually patented by Ferdinand Mannlicher. So
I can understand why they might call it that. So
yeah, because of the charger clip is actually used for that model.
Sure.
Although it was actually modeled from the commission rifle by the Germans. Okay.
Right. So in the 1930s, what happened with the Carcano? The Italian government made some decisions. Then the war came. What happened? There were two variants regarding the cartridge, the bullet size, the 6.5, which was the type that Lee Harvey Oswald owned, and then there was another one made with greater number of grains of lead, the 7.35 millimeter. Tell us about that, and tell us what impact it may have had on perceptions of it as an accurate or inaccurate weapon.
Right. I think the reports of its unreliability or inadequate performance, especially in long and short ranges, the Italian government decided to introduce a new short rifle, the Modello 1938, chambered with a 7.35 by 51 millimeter caliber. Okay, slightly larger. Okay, it uses Spitzer type bullet on this one, with and it's actually tipped with aluminum. When it was rechambered, for that matter, it is a more unstable round. It tends to tumble when it hits soft tissue. Okay. Then the problem, there's a bit of a thing about the 635, 6.5 by the 735. Let me just get information for you. Hold on. Actually, able to find this out a few months ago. Now, the thing about the 6.5, it has what we call gain twist. Okay, it has a 1 by 19 twist at the throat and increases to 1.8 at the muzzle. Now, it actually it results in a more stable. Um, when you fire the round, it actually doesn't tumble that much.
Six
Um,
point five.
yeah, the 6.5. The gain twist of that results in it was a slow initial twist barrel, progressively getting fast until the full twist rate is attained at the muzzle. And when you have the slow initial twist, results in a substantially less torque being imparted to the bullet during the highest loading phase of the interior ballistic cycle. Now, when the 7.35 Carcano was introduced in 1930, they used conventional rifling instead because of that. That is Oswald's rifles, the gain twist thing. So, but there was a problem with the 7.35 because the Italian government was unable to successfully mass produce the new arms because mass production, they cannot do that. So they have to rebel them back to the old 6.5 caliber. So in order for the Italian army to know which caliber they have to use for the rifles, they actually stamped the caliber on the rifle to tell them which caliber they have to use for their own rifles. So
Yeah.
eventually, they were able to reduce enough quantities for that, and and it actually went in use in Finland during the Winter War in 1940, and and in Finland they call it a tourney carbines because of there's a tourney stamp on that. So
Right.
um,
Right.
now,
So,
mhm,
sure. So let me ask you a question. What was the experience that the Italians had with the Carcano 6.5?
mhm.
Do you know much about how well did it fare in combat?
I mean, like the performance thereof.
Yeah, do you know very much about that? I know maybe you
Well,
weren't prepared for a question like that about, the Italian army in World War II and how the lethality of the Carcano
yeah,
6.5, but
yeah. Of course, of course, when you consider like dum-dum bullets, back in World War One, they outlawed dum-dum bullets. Those really,
yeah,
when they enter the body, they pretty much explode, I should say. They also they came up with the full metal jacket, and actually they called it a more humane weapon. Although that's, I don't know why they call it a humanitarian weapon because of the penetrating power of the Carcano. It's actually is a good penetrator.
right. And by
As
the
you
way, I think that
yeah.
my tell me if I'm wrong, but my impression is that because this happened, they realized, oh my gosh, we want a heavier rounds. We want the 7.35. It
Hmm.
happened kind of in the middle of a war, and they ended up, rechambering it so
Hmm.
that they had cases where a lot of situations where the rifles that were rechambered didn't have great accuracy, right?
I doubt it
Is
because
that
I'm
true?
actually, yeah, it's not really that true. It is very, very accurate to a certain maybe 20, 50
The
yards. But
7.35?
yeah, no, the 6.5. It's actually
Right.
accurate to that.
Okay. So
Now,
right.
it is accurate to at least 250 yards, but considering that the greatest distance that Oz was able to shoot at Kennedy is 88 yards, it's more than enough on that one. I actually, even though I don't have a Carcano rifle on me because, of course, firearms laws here in the Philippines. And of course, I never heard about the Carcano rifle until I heard about the assassination because it's a very little known rifle uh, outside of the United States. So I was quite surprised about it. So I studied a bit on the rifle itself, specifically Oswald's rifle.
Of
Um,
course,
mhm,
he made it famous, really.
or infamous, I should
Yeah,
say.
infamous. Exactly. Sure, absolutely.
Right,
So
right.
what
But
kind of muzzle velocity do you have with the Carcano 6.5?
about maybe 2,500 feet. Let me just make sure. It's about 2,500 feet per second. So it's actually quite fast.
2,500?
Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and of course you can, the thing about the Carcano, when they actually heard about it, when they actually first saw it, it's actually something that they're really unfamiliar with. Like even Robert Fraser never heard of that, of a 6.5 millimeter round. Um, And if you notice about the round itself, it's actually round in shape at the tip.
Yeah,
So
sure.
yeah, because it's
Absolutely.
actually, yeah. So, but of course, if that's for the 6.5, but if you go for the 7.5, it's quite conventional because it's pointed compared to
Right,
the
right, sure. Okay, fine. So
pointed.
then it's, and tell us about this whole issue of accuracy. Okay,
Mhm.
is that just an urban legend that it wasn't accurate? That they call it the humanitarian because you couldn't kill anybody with it, you know?
That's not really true. You know, the Carcano, when you fire it soft tissue, yeah, it will go straight. Okay. Um, I actually saw in certain programs that when they shot a Carcano towards like a lot of pine boards, it has very good penetrating power. And high-speed cameras actually saw the flight of the Carcano very straight. Uh, it's actually partly because of the round itself. Because of the rounded shape of the bullet, it actually grips the rifling much more securely than the conventional round. Because when you have a conventional
Really?
round, yeah, because it doesn't grip as much because of the pointed shape of the round. When you have a like a pointed round, it tends to wobble a bit after it leaves the
Well,
barrel.
sure, you have tapering, which
Yeah,
means
yeah.
that a part of it, a portion of it doesn't get affected by the rifling
Right,
directly.
it's not. It doesn't grip, but unlike the 6.5 one, it actually most of it's already being gripped by the rifling. So when it leaves the rifle, it is it's very stable.
I think it was,
Um,
I think it was,
and
excuse me, it's been referred to as a flying drill.
right, it is like a flying drill. However, the thing about this, and I actually heard a lot of people say about this, like in their own experience, when they hit soft tissue and it leaves the soft tissue, it tends to tumble. I've seen it done like through ballistic soap or ballistic gel. Um, of course, when it hits soft tissue, it tends to have a cavitating effect on the
Right,
tissue, like a big shock on that one, especially when it went through Kennedy's back and it exited his neck. It really like it actually like boom, it actually like a big blast. It like it just went up and then subsides back again when
right.
it left and you can see if you actually if they're able to see the doctors actually saw the neck wound. I don't know, they were not able observe the term because they're trying to save JFK's life. It would have been like left a jagged hole on his throat, not a straight
Really.
thing, because it already began to tumble at that point. And when it hit Connolly on his back, it hit him sideways. That's why
Sure,
when they saw Connolly's jacket and his clothing, it's an elongated shape. And if you saw
sure. Well, I
Connolly,
think, so.
it is elongated as well.
Yeah, I think that's somewhat deemed controversial.
Mm,
But I think it's accurate to say, and I think a lot of people agree with this, there's yawing that takes place with a bullet like that.
hmm
It's such a high velocity, it's gonna eventually, you know, I guess any projectile is gonna yaw at some point, right?
right. But not
So,
but that actually made it actually made it relatively unique for weapons. So all knowing the characteristic of how Carcano bullets would actually behave, it actually quite consistent with how JFK and then Governor Connolly got wounded because it happened that way.
really,
Yeah,
how
because
so?
this is how it happens. Like when Luke and Mike Hag actually did an experimentation using our Carcano bullet, they actually fired it against like a simulation of soft tissue, like maybe ballistic gel. They did that, and they actually have a witness board beyond that. You know, like say, it's like a big panel of wood there. And when they fire consistently, it always hits the wood sideways. It never hits them head on.
Really?
Consistent. It never. And they did it so many times. It always happens that way. I'll send you a picture of that if I can.
Sure, okay,
Maybe like a short video. I'll send you
interesting.
one maybe during the day. Okay, after we end this.
All right,
Now,
all right, let me ask you a question. Is there anything else, any other character, before we talk about the assassination itself, are there
mhm.
any other characteristics of the Carcano rifle that, it was 6.5,
Mhm.
Oswald's model was 41 inches, I believe.
No,
Is
it's
there
40,
any
40 inch, a 40
40?
inch for, yeah. But about that, because when Oswald saw the ad on the February issue of American Rifleman, it was the 36-inch Model T,
Right.
I think. But Klein's actually ran out of that by the time Oswald ordered that rifle. So um, it's simply because they decide when back in 1962, um, clients actually ordered first ordered the old model, okay, and then they changed the model to the M91 1938 model instead. So when they received the order, they gave him the 40-incher instead, although it has the same catalog model. I'll give you a comparison of the ads
Sure.
between the old one and the one that actually came out after Oswald ordered the rifle.
But
Okay,
was there any difference between them besides the length of the
basically
weapon?
no, just the length essentially. Uh, Give me a moment. I'm gonna try to get this information for you because I do have a list of models here. Let me see here. I'm gonna check on this. Hold on.
Sure.
I have to check on my notes because I don't have a good memory. Okay. Oh yeah, there it is. So let me see what model was that. I'll give you all the documentation. I have all the
No,
pictures
sure,
that
that's
I
not a
have.
problem. No,
Yeah.
don't worry
Okay.
about that. We can, yeah, I know. Yeah, we can get that,
Right.
and I'm very interested in seeing it. Let me ask you a
Mm,
question. Regarding the way that the rifle worked, it had an end block clip.
mhm.
Um, let's look at the bolt action, okay?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Tell us about the bolt action, Vicente, of the Carcano.
Yeah. The a lot of people have been denigrating the Carcon because it's a bolt action, but because some people say that the bolt is actually like slows down the loading time. But the design of the bolt is such a way you can actually don't have to raise the rifle in order to bring back the bolt and load a new bolt into it. Oswald, of course, had this bolt for months, so he actually able to practice uh, loading the rifle in a very fast clip. You can do that because of the design of the bolt itself. You don't have to exert too much effort to do that. So also itself has familiarity with the weapon, so it's no problem with him to load in the time needed. But of course, I don't know. A lot of people make too much about the 6-second thing about it. Because for one thing, when he did the first shot, the round is already loaded. Okay,
Right,
so he had to load it twice.
right,
Uh,
exactly,
when he Yeah.
exactly. And by the
So
way, about that, Oswald was reputed to spend lots of time practicing. When he was in New Orleans, he had the rifle. And
yeah,
according to, I think Priscilla Johnson, there's a woman named Priscilla
Priscilla Johnson, Macmillan.
John
Yeah, Macmillan Johnson. Yeah.
McMillan, yeah, thank you.
Hmm.
They gave Marina Oswald $40,000, and she spent about a year or so with Marina, living with her, helping to take care of the kids. They got
Hmm.
to be really, really pretty close. And
Right.
so she talked about a lot of things. One of the things
Hmm.
that came out apparently was that when Lee was in New Orleans, sometimes you just go out and he'd just be practicing with the bolts, you know,
Yeah.
and
Dry fire. A lot of dry firing thing. Yeah.
yeah, right.
It's
And so, but anyway, just moving the bolt back and forth, and they get pretty good with it. Now, supposedly, the first shot was heard very shortly after they made a hairpin turn.
Yes, that's it about the hairpin turn. So it missed completely. It's not
Right.
unusual because I think that time the tree is actually there's like the branches of a tree nearby actually obstructing his view, and
That's it.
it
Yeah.
went
Right.
wild. Uh, and of course I think some people speculate, and there is some a good amount of certainly about that time. There is some base to that particular speculation that he was using a scope at the time. It's also produced a miss. The scope is it's really bad. It's a cheap Japanese made scope. So it's actually better that he actually used the iron sights instead, because but the distance is not really that far when he did his second and third shots. The furthest is 88 yards. I'm not a shooter myself, but I can hit the distances that without any problem.
Yeah, this is sure. This is an important issue. And first of all, before I deal with that, the point I wanted to make about the fact that he supposedly fired the first shot right after the limousine made that heparin turn. That's important because that kind of sets the time duration,
Right.
time lapse for the three shots to be not like 5 seconds, 5 point something, but more like about, I don't know,
8
how many
seconds
seconds
maybe.
in total?
How many? Maybe as slow as 8, as much as 11. So
Wow.
it's
So there you go.
depending the first shot really, but 8
Of
seconds is
course.
more likely.
Right. So then he had more time. Now about the scope, is it considered almost like certain that Oswald didn't use it? I mean, it's speculation. There was no
Yeah.
eyewitness to him looking
Yeah.
through the site.
Oh yeah, it's a very impossible, but there's a lot of speculation. There's a good base of that, as I mentioned, that he may have used the scope the first time. And but I'm actually quite positive as to why the scope is actually offset to the left. If you notice that, um,
Yeah.
if far lightly actually with something like that, it's actually not centered as you would expect. Some people actually speculated that when he laid down the rifle, the scope actually was misaligned when he put down the rifle for some reason. But I think it was actually installed that way, maybe. But all in all, he may have just used the iron sight for the second and third shots, because the range is not that big. He can do that because he is a marksman. He
For
qualified
sure.
as
I
a
mean,
sharpshooter when he's
right.
in the Marines with an M14 as well as an M4 M1.
Sure.
So
I think we used. In fact, there's a picture of him, as you probably know, in the Marine Corps on the firing range,
mhm.
but I think with an M1 Garand.
M1 Garand, right?
And so the thing is that, remember something, the Marines in the 1950s, I think as today, they train at up to 500 yards.
Hmm.
And, that's a very, very far target. And they have to put shots within a relatively small space.
Hmm.
So they have made a lot about the fact that, well, he was, towards the end, the second time, he was just a marksman, and
Hmm.
he was shooting Maggie drawers, which means he was missing. At that
Control. Yeah,
point,
I heard that a lot. Yeah.
I think he had been court-martialed twice. He was like itching to get out of the Marine Corps.
Right.
He hated I think the life of the Marines. He just hated the authority, having to kowtow to authority,
Hmm.
and he didn't give a damn. I think
Yeah.
that's I think that
The
basically,
novelty wore off on him, I should say.
yeah, sure. So he could have, and his brother, by the way, said he was a decent shot.
Right.
Yeah,
He actually hunted when he was young. He actually hunted, and
yeah,
it's like a very good shot about that. And you don't even have to be a very good shot to make those shots on JFK.
yeah. That's that. They've made this into an extremely difficult shot that even expert shots couldn't pull off. And something else interesting,
mm,
Castro
yeah.
apparently
Oh,
after
yeah.
the assassination, which he vehemently denied
Denied.
knowing
Yeah.
anything about Oswald. No, we never
I'm a
knew him.
patsy.
Right. Well, that's what Oswald said. But
Yeah.
the funny thing is, Castro actually set up kind of like like staged a reenactment of the assassination.
Hmm.
And he used 3 shooters. He showed it couldn't be done, or at least one guy couldn't pull it off. It was very hard, and but
Hmm.
time and time again, people come along and they do it, and they
Yeah, they
show
do
that
it.
it's actually possible. And it's thank you very much, Carcano. Carcano. Uh,
Yeah.
it's an accurate rifle,
Yeah.
and it's not that challenging to pull off hitting a target at 88 yards.
Right. Also, one thing about it, because it's another indication that also is acted alone, is because of the fact that he used a Carcano. Why the heck he used a Carcano, not any other rifle like an M1 Garand, or because
Enfield.
they're all of them, because it was so cheap. He had no
Well, so
money essentially.
yes, and this is the thing. I have the opinion that when he went to Mexico, I think they realized, Castro had so much guile. I think it's conceivable. I think it's conceivable that they said, this guy, he's kind of crazy, he's kind of unstable, he's really a believer. We
Mhm.
can't put him in. We can't give him a better rifle. We just let him do his own thing, but we'll stir the pot and really get him to the point where he's got to prove himself, right?
Mhm.
And so, is that exactly what happened? It's hard to know, but
It's hard to know
supposedly,
about that.
suppose
Uh,
well,
right.
supposedly he went in to the Cuban embassy, the Cuban consulate. They said, look, if you want to go to Cuba, it'll help if you get a Soviet visa first to go into the
Yes, yeah.
Soviet Union. And then so he went
It-
over there, and they said, no, we're not going to. They'll take you 4
no, not
months,
gonna
and
give you that.
you got to give it to
Yeah.
me. And he really got worked up. It basically a really violent argument ensued, like 15
Right.
minutes long, with him banging the table, and it just got totally out of control.
Right.
Pulled out
Yeah.
his revolver, said, this, I've got to carry this around because I'm being harassed by the FBI. And
Yeah.
so, but the thing is, they say the Soviets would have
They
said,
don't
this
want
guy's a
they don't want to do
useless
anything with him
man.
because
He's
they
nuts.
already knew who he
He's
is.
too unstable.
Mhm.
He's just not. He's not. Nobody can make him happy. They already knew about him.
Right.
But
Yeah.
the Cubans who took chances, who knows? Maybe they said, we can really rattle his cage and say, hey man, you think you're revolutionary? You gotta show us. We don't believe it. You could have said, you're
That's
just a punk. You're a wannabe. And but Castro had said in September 7th, in an article that was reporting out his speech that he gave at the Brazilian embassy in Havana on
mhm.
September 7th, that those leaders who put in jeopardy, my life, they themselves are not free from danger themselves. So,
Mhm.
and some think that Oswald saw that. He was very, very strong follower of Castro, and
Mhm.
he was very interested in his speeches. Many people think that article, which ran in the New Orleans Times-Picayune, that
Mhm.
Oswald saw it, and he said, hey, this Kennedy guy that he loved so much, he identified as an enemy of Fidel Castro. And Fidel Castro had a lot of reason to be angry at the Kennedys because
Right.
they were they were
Uh,
doing raids on a regular basis, and there's
Right.
a lot of attempts to assassinate him.
Right. Yeah, but it's quite ironic that like in a personal level, Oswald liked Kennedy. He actually liked
Yeah,
him.
he
Personal
did.
level.
He cried. Supposedly cried when um, when Patrick Kennedy died, the little
Yeah.
baby. He
Yeah. He's
cried about that in
right.
August of 1963.
Right.
But then
He's a
his
JFK was a symbol. That's the reason why he killed him. He's a symbol
well, sir,
for
that, but also you have the fact that, I mean, Castro did not look upon him as a mere symbol of anything but the hatred of the United States for the Cuban Revolution.
mhm.
And honestly, Kennedy and his brother were deeply involved in minute planning of raids and things like that against Cuban infrastructure. They did a lot
Right.
of damage. And they
Right.
also wanted to, of course, carry out,
One of those.
assassinations. So Castro, had a lot of animus against Kennedy. It's possible that Lee Harvey Oswald sensed that and decided to take things in his own hands. I think he was a creature of opportunity. He
Yeah,
wanted,
it's an opportunity because like the Moroccan route was not even published until maybe Wednesday, I think.
yeah, the 19th, was it?
Yeah, I think the 19th. No, I think that they actually told in the 19th, and of course I think
Tuesday, right?
Oswald, because he doesn't buy newspapers. He just reads in the in the TSBD.
Yeah,
He's that cheap.
he's a
Uh,
cheapskate.
he's a cheapskate. So he basically was able to read the motorcade route during when he read it the following day, and of course it was a plan that he formulated in a couple of days. That's why he
Oh,
had to go
sure. He
back to
could, in
Irving.
fact, he could have just said, dang, I may as well try it. Fidel needs me, you know? And so, I mean, and I just think he's a man of impulse.
Mhm.
He made things up as he went along. And you know, it's hard to know exactly what was going through his mind, if anybody helped him or not. I tend to think that he was able to pull that shot off, and then he just got the heck out of there. Gets on a
Yeah,
bus, pounds on the door, the middle of a block. Let me in. Then he
let me
gets so
in.
because he realizes this thing ain't moving. Hmm. He wanted to
I
get the
might as
heck
well
out
go
of
into a
there fast.
transfer, right? Um,
He gets a taxi.
yeah, ironical, of course, is when Oswald bought the rifle. It's not for JFK because his trip to Dallas was a month away, but actually for General Walker, because
Yeah.
he wanted to kill Walker.
Oh,
So
sure. And he probably, and you know, again, people will say, no, it never happened. There's no evidence, no
yeah,
witnesses. They just saw two people running away. Well, actually, his
I heard
wife,
that.
wait. They'll say
Yeah, I
this.
heard that radio
You,
show that you did about Walker. So
right. No, you can't testify against your spouse. And okay, fine, whatever. The fact is that she finds a letter from her husband
mhm.
in with Russian misspellings about what to do in case I'm arrested or I get killed. That's funny,
Mm-hmm.
you
That's
know.
funny.
So
Yeah,
and then what happens is that letter was in a book. She
right,
apparently tried to keep it as evidence.
right.
And
Of course, it was Ruth Payne who gave the book to the FBI or the Dallas
well,
police,
I
but
mean, they
she's not
passed
even
it to
aware that
her,
there's the notice there. Uh,
right? And so
they're
then she's
not.
confronted.
Hmm.
Marina's confronted. What the
And he
hell
had
is
to tell the
this?
truth. What the hell is that? So that's how the story about Walker came about. Uh,
She
it's actually
volunteered it.
very, yeah. Nobody like the FBI did not even know Oswald's own involvement in the Walker shooting until much later when they actually found the book on that,
Right,
and they
exactly. And then
right.
they had a Russian translator there,
It's
interpreter,
mhm.
who read it
And
and said, "Hey, you know, then they looked at Marina and said, "What is this?" And she
mm,
explained it.
explained it.
And so yeah, so there you go. So people say, "No, it never happened."
Yeah,
Oswald was fluent in Russian. Well, he misspelled it. He misspelled English. He's fluent in English too, and he misspelled
yeah,
English.
yeah, yeah. He's a bad speller, notoriously speaking. You know, and even in English, he's a bad
Exactly.
speller.
Sure,
So
sure. So
it's
let me ask you a question. What
mhm.
else about the assassination, the Carcano and all that are topics that you'd like to bring up
Oh yeah,
that,
okay. Yeah. It's I actually did a little research again on the Carcano along, and then I came across something about how arms manufacturers in Italy um put serial numbers, the system of serial numbers on their weapons. Like they follow the German system. The first they actually did A and then 111 to A999. Okay,
you
and
know,
progressive to the alphabet A to Z, then AA to ZZ, etc. So you can there if you actually saw like the sequential of the serial numbers on the shipment of the rifle to clients, you're able to find that. So therefore, there conceivably would be a lot of rifles with the serial number the serial number which is 2365, for example. Okay, but there's only one or 2766 rather. So but there's only one that has the prefix C on it.
right.
So there may be A2766, B2766, C2766, Oswald's rifle, etc. So it is unique. uh
But let me ask you a question. What was the serial number on Oswald's rifle?
C2766. It's actually a stamp on the barrel. I'll send you a picture of that
Sure.
in the from the National Archives.
Fantastic.
um
So, right.
so
His
it,
rifle.
yeah. Of course,
It goes.
it's impossible for them to the aspect could not even know that when they saw the stamp, they couldn't even know it was Oswald until they saw the paperwork from clients and said it was actually ordered on alias, Alec Hidell on that. So
Right, right. And so
it
what, they make so much of this matter of, well, what's the proof that he actually bought the rifle? Do you have any
yeah.
comment about that?
Oh yeah. Okay. Now, obviously, he got the ad. They were able when Detective Rose and Stovall went to Ruth Payne's home, the following day, November 23rd, and they actually, of course, Ruth Payne actually told them, "Yes, okay, go ahead," and Ruth Payne had to leave because she has some errands to do at the time, Detective Rose actually found two negatives and a snapshot of one of the backyard photographs of Oswald in the Neely Street location. And then Stovall actually found Dr. McCabe rather actually found the other snapshot. And then Detective Stovall actually saw a page from torn down a magazine, which is turned out to be from American Rifleman, and with the advertising. And there's a circle around the catalog number there, which is actually the Carcano, and that's how. And he was able to clip out the coupon and fill it out. On the coupon, of course, he filled out the catalog number of that. Of course, it didn't. It's not really specified. It was indeed a Carcano rifle, just as an Italian carbine. And he filled out the catalog number of that, and he signed it, and he sent an envelope with the money order, which he got and was mailed out on March 12th. I'll send you an image of a very clear image
Sure,
of
sure.
the money order.
That's great.
Yeah. Of course, a lot of people said it was not even cashed. It was cashed because if you see blank copies of the money order that was issued at that time, there were no holes on it. The holes on the money order indicated it has already been validated, like it has been in cash already, because those are called Hollerith holes. Like punch cards. Those money orders at the time are virtual punch cards. So that's
Right.
how it. Yeah.
And that happened when the transaction was carried out, and they
Yeah.
actually, the transit department, where they would process checks, they
En masse, of course. They have to
yeah,
process thousands of money orders at that time. Money orders a big thing then. So they just gonna just stamp it, and that they just have to do like mass, and they have to punch holes on it in order to validate.
of course.
Anyway, I like to thank Tom Scully for that. Tom Scully is a very good researcher, and he was
Right,
able to
right. Okay,
discover that.
good, good.
Yeah.
And so, are there any other issues that have come up about the Carcano that need to be
Um,
addressed? And they're kind of like red herrings, or
Not that I know of. It's just a matter of knowing the characteristics of how the rounds would actually behave when they fired from it. Uh, that is when I actually saw like the wounds on Connolly on that. That's the kicker. That is when I believe in the single bullet theory. And also the fact that the way they're aligned to each other in the limo,
yeah,
and the fact that Connolly was sitting in the rumble seat, which is about 6 inches to the left, and of course a bit about to the down from Kennedy's downrange.
right.
You can see the trajectory and the way Kennedy actually positioned his arm like that on the door,
Sure, waving.
waving that. When he was shot, he was actually his jack was hiked up a bit because of the fact his arm was on the door itself,
His
on
back
his
brace.
elbow. So it was raised a bit. So if once they when they were actually in experimentation were in when they fired in that way, it actually aligned perfectly to that of Kennedy and the back and his back wound and the throat and all that. So and of course um, one thing about one thing about when the round exited Kennedy went sideways, the velocity was reduced because the energy was expanded a lot. But it did create a lot of damage on Connolly because when it hit Connolly, it was still tumbling within his body.
Right, and it
And
did, excuse me, it was still going at a pretty high velocity.
At high velocities, comparatively speaking, of course. And when it hit Connolly's, and when it hit Connolly's wrist, that is when the round become deformed a bit. Some of the grains where it actually were implanted in were actually were found in Connolly's wrist, and then it hit his thigh. Remember that that the round is about 160 grains, 160.
Yeah,
There and the after that, when they recovered the stretcher bullet, it's about maybe 158, 159 grains, and it is quite. And of course, John Latimer was able to demonstrate that there's enough, like he was able to squeeze enough fragments of those 2 grains to account for what is found in Connolly's wrist. Those particular
right.
uh, that
So
were
they extirpated some lead from his wrist.
right. And the
There's
way that
something left over,
happens,
right?
yeah, because it hit Conley's wrist sideways. That's why the lead was squeezed out of the bullet like a toothpaste. That's why it's somewhat deformed in that manner. So it's quite deceiving when you see the bullet photograph on the side. It looks pristine. Look at it head on. That is where I can
It's
see the
flattened, right?
deformity. Yeah. Uh, well, unfortunately, a lot of so-called researchers actually make hay of the fact it's pristine and sideways. They would never mention to those people like the reader that is actually squashed sideways. So
Right, sure.
uh, yeah,
So it did get deformed.
it got deformed.
It didn't explode. I mean,
Mhm.
it didn't mushroom out or
Right. Yeah,
mangled.
it behaved exactly should behave because it's a full metal jacket. It did not hit bone until it hit Connolly's wrist. It was that clean. Of
Yeah.
course, it was a different story when the third shot hit Kennedy's skull. It's a very hard bone. When it happens like that, it behave the the full metal jacket just failed, and the bullet behaved like a hollow point bullet. That's what happened. That's why when it blew away, and of course fragments blew away from Kennedy's skull, and pieces of it were actually found on the limo. But that is only about 2/3 of the bullet. Um,
Sure.
and there's enough, kind of like Dale Myers when he said that it may be that a piece of the third bullet actually hit Tague.
Ah,
Uh,
okay, interesting. I
yeah,
mean,
it's not the first bullet, but rather the
let me
third
ask you a
shot.
question. This is something that I wanted to clear up. Where exactly was Tag with relation to
I
the
think
Indian?
I think it's actually near the at the triple overpass. I think as far
Maybe
as
like
it's
another 60 yards
yeah.
from the
That's why it's really
limousine?
far. That's why I'm really skeptic about the fact that they used that the miss shot actually hit Tag. No, it is not. It's too far for that. So, um, hold on. So, and Tag himself actually remembered that he may have been hit between the second and third shots. He did not specifically remember that he was shot, like he was hit on way before that. So um, I kind of agree with Dale Myers on that, and of course Pat Collins actually also agreed with that particular hypothesis that Tague was actually
Sure.
hit by a fragment in the third shot because there was enough matter for that. And of course you see there's some lead on the windshield. Of course it because that's where maybe one of the fragments hit, uh, and the much of the energy is expended when of the bullet when it left Kennedy. That's what happened.
Of course.
So
Okay. Great. All
yeah.
right. Well, that's something I want to discuss for another interview
Hmm.
with Vicente Velasco.
Hmm.
Uh, so listen. Quorum Radio is great. It's always happy to have on
Hmm.
zealous and diligent researchers like you,
Hmm.
Vicente. Hope we can have you on again, talk about the windshield.
Oh yeah, I windshield. Oh, one more thing about it. It kind of reminds me of because I had a lot of arguments last night with a researcher who actually is endorsing the Secret Service did it thing. Like George Hickey. It's, uh, of course, no serious student of the assassination would ever take that seriously. the mortal error thing with the R. Donnelly and the Boner manager, when they wrote that when that the third was caused by George Hickey accidentally firing his AR-15 to the president's head. Uh, it's number one is simply impossible. No witnesses ever said that he did it. Even his fellow Secret Service agents on the limo did not even see him do that. Even Dave Powers did not even see it. Uh, One witness in the Daily Plaza actually told Richard Sprague that they never saw Hickey do that. I think the only witness that Donaghy used that says that Hickey did what he did is S.M. Holland. And I'm afraid that Holland's credibility as a witness is not really that good. But
Wait, but there's always, wait, you've forgotten
Yeah.
about somebody. Jackie did it.
Jackie did. That's something ridiculous. And of course, there's the fact that it's impossible to have it may be possible to have a grassy knoll shooter, but there are two things that are against that. Number one, the grassy knoll is a very bad place to have a sniper. Ill
Well, it's not only
concealment.
that, but listen, I mean, the bullet, I mean, he's got, I mean, you can't, okay, fine. I'm not gonna accept that the Zapruder film was doctored. Come on.
Yeah, it's not. It's not doctored.
Come on.
David
I
Rohn
mean,
actually pretty much
you
shot that
see
down.
this huge flap around his temple, boom,
Right.
open up, tremendous blood and guts.
Right. Right.
And so, to do that, wouldn't they, if they were actually, if somebody had actually been on the grassy knoll to try to pull off that shot, there are all these
Yeah.
people from the school book depository, like,
Right.
maybe 20, 30 people. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, that would not have
Yeah.
been easy.
Right. And
That would
also
not have
one
been
more thing
easy.
about the famous Alkins photo after the second shot.
Yes,
Some
incredible.
of the Secret Service agents actually were actually looking towards the depository because they think that's the source of the shot.
Well,
That's also
yeah,
one
that's
thing.
that's an interesting point. The point I make about the Altons photo is that, my gosh, just that to me shows that they were a little bit disoriented. As they were
Right.
like, I mean, yeah, of course, their reaction was, I think, consistent with men that
Puzzled.
were
They were puzzled. Yeah, they were
tired.
actually. Yeah, and of course you can see on that second photo that JFK is actually assuming the position wherein he's
Right, it's
grasping his
exactly. His
throat.
wife has her hand on his elbow,
Hmm.
and he's just been shot. And the funny thing is that the Secret Service agents, with the exception of Flint Hill, was looking forward towards the limo.
Right.
And the others are like looking around. To me, it just shows that maybe they were not on their game. Maybe they were tired out. Maybe it was just too much. They were burning the candle at both ends. They weren't getting enough
Yeah.
food.
Sleep.
They
Yeah.
at 12 midnight, 1 in the morning, they were looking for food.
Right.
And so then, of course, the story is they went to the Cellar Cafe and
Yeah.
they had a
They
little
cruised a
Everclear,
bit. Yeah, they cruised a bit.
Hawaiian punch with
Um,
Everclear.
right. It is so it's not something that but of course it's a different time. It's not like what we have today, really close security, bulletproof windows, bulletproof windows and all that. Of course, it's supposed to have a bubble top on top, the limo, but it was JFK who actually said, no, I don't want a bubble top. Uh,
Yeah.
and they would have a bubble, if they actually rained that day, they would have put the bubble top on the limo, because it was actually raining the night before, and the weather cooperated with them, unfortunately. And of course, I think the temperature at that time about 15 degrees Celsius at that time, so it's quite cold at
What
the
you
time,
mean in the
quite chilly.
morning or
And during the time of assassination, about 15 degrees Celsius
is
at the
that
time.
right? Was it
Yeah,
that cool? I
it's
thought it
that
was I
cold.
thought it was warmer. I thought it was like, maybe like about 18.
No, about 15.
Because
I checked on the weather report, and the wind was actually blowing quite well. No, above. It's just like quite windy at the time. Um,
really.
I think that's also one particular factor why. Because I think also that's actually making for the headshot at that time, and there's maybe like a wind factor involved. It may that's why he hit his back instead. And But of course, also being a very good shot, it took maybe took the wind, was able to shoot ahead the 3rd.
Right.
So
All right, well, good. Well, listen, Quorum Radio's grateful to have you on, Vicente.
yeah,
We can do it again.
yeah,
And,
of course. I'll send you the pictures.
send me those pictures. I'd like
I'll
to,
a name.
see
I'll
them
send
and
you a
include
zip
them.
file in your email. Okay.
Great, will do, Vicente.
Okay.
Thanks
All right.
again.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Anyway, have a great day. Bye bye.